If any of you three fall over again during this video, I will be taking this further and calling your parents because I've absolutely had enough of you three. Alright, just please sit still. Hey everyone, it's Hayes, and in today's video, of course, we're going to do the commentary / analysis for episode 14 in Miraculous Ladybug season 6. Grendiaper, I think it's pronounced, but no one ever said it in the episode, so I don't actually know that's the way to pronounce it. I swear for half of these new episodes this season I've been like, one thing I'm looking forward to is finding out how to pronounce the title of the episode during it. So yeah, still don't know how to say it, so I guess I'll just wait for the English dub and hope they say it in that one. But anyway besties, please make sure you have watched the episode because I'm about to spoil the full thing for you now. And just obviously my quick thoughts, I gave this episode, in my opinion, 7.5 out of 10. Certainly not my favourite episode this season, but I did enjoy it, I had a good time. I liked that the opening was a bit of a flashback, and one thing I really enjoyed about the episode was how fluid it was, the flow of it, where it just kind of really naturally led into the Akuma attack, where it was just really continuous with Zoe doing her thing as Fury, and then obviously Max was like, hello, my tram driver's just been abducted. Even though he was mean, he was still my tram driver. Then he calls Ladybug, and then Rena calls Ladybug, and Miss Hound calls Ladybug. I just liked how it kind of flowed very naturally from what Zoe was doing to the Akuma fight. I really enjoyed that. I also liked how Zoe did change from the start of the episode to the end of the episode. At the start of the episode she's very sweet, very kind like usual. She's like, I can't wait to go back to school and see my friends. It's really, really nice, but by the end of it she's a bit like, no. And one thing I didn't mind, although I think other people might be disappointed, is that Ladybug didn't get to confront Fury. Going into this episode, I didn't think they'd have the time, so I don't mind personally them saving it for another one. I just don't think it would have fit in with what was going on in this episode. However, one thing I'm a bit like weirded out about is the thing about Zoe's suit. So after she transforms that first time, Zoe is confused. She's like, Pollen, how, why, what happened? And Pollen's like, well, you had a bit of a dark day, you know, so your suit reflected that. Which, I'm not pretending doesn't make sense, absolutely does make sense. However, at the same time, the amount of bad days Marin and Adrian have had, and I'm sure the other heroes have as well, but they still transform, the suit hasn't changed for that. Yes, I know Adrian's suit did change in Kuro Neko, but that was a very, very different reason, and Marinette's changes in the London special, but again, that's for a different reason. That's to mark her out as the present day Ladybug and to separate her from all the past ones that she's possibly going to see during the episode. Those are very different reasons from what happened to Zoe in this episode. So whilst I like the reasoning, don't get me wrong, I like it, it's really incongruous since, you know, Marinette's had terrible days before. Like, for example, in Truth, when she breaks up with Luca and he gets akumatized, she's nearly crying as she transforms, but she still looks the same. I guess you could maybe chalk it up to, well, they didn't have as big of a budget, so they couldn't possibly have that, and it would make her more vulnerable to Hawk Daddy if he knew she was having a bad day, and he could visibly see that with a costume change or whatever, maybe, I don't know exactly. So yes, I like the idea, but also it doesn't make full sense in comparison to what everyone else has been through. Like, for example, in Mr. Regressed, Adrian was so scared when he sees that statue coming towards him. You'd think his outfit, in terms of this line of thinking, would have absolutely changed, but it doesn't. So I like the idea, but that's one reason why this episode is a 7.5 out of 10, because no. Anyway, let's get into it. So as I said in my theory video, I thought like the opening of the trailer was a little flashback to the first day of school, which it definitely was, and like how everyone was seeing how they kind of like picked their new outfits for some of them. Really enjoyed that. Pollen, adorable as always. Pollen is the best, although I did find it a bit weird how Zoe was like, oh, I can't wait to see everyone. And I'm like, you literally had a massive pool party at Adrian's the other week. That little pool party section for the end of Recreation, that's just before they go back to school. So, don't know what that was about. And also, in terms of the timelines, obviously the flashback is right at the start, I would assume, of the series. But as for the rest of it, I am assuming that obviously we got Sabrina in her new outfit. That happens after Daddy Cop. And then I would think the rest of this episode happens before Sleeping Siren, because as we see in this episode, it's Zoe's first outing as Fury. Like when she transforms, when she gets back to the cinema. She's confused, like, how did this happen? She talks to Pollen about it, but then she transforms in Sleeping Siren to presumably hurt Ray and his friends and stuff. So this definitely seems like after Daddy Cop but before Sleeping Siren. Why the episode numbers are the way that they are, I don't know. Why can't we have it in order? We did for season 4 and 5, I don't get it. But that's where I put it, between Daddy Cop and Sleeping Siren in the chronological order. But anyway, then Zoe goes downstairs to talk to Andre. And in this video, I'm not going to go into really how I think it's absolutely terrible that Andre is, I was about to say is terrible that he's looking after Zoe. Obviously I don't think it's terrible he's looking after Zoe, but what I do find is awful is that he's like, well, my daughter Chloe doesn't like me very much, so instead of trying to build a relationship with her and try to sort out her behaviour, I'm just going to move on and have this new daughter. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to go too much into it in this video, but please know I am just like, no. Andre, what are you doing? I can't get behind it. Don't get me wrong, I really liked in season 5 and season 4 Zoe and Andre's relationship. I really enjoyed the bits of the relationship we got to see in this episode. Like, if Chloe just did not exist, I'd be fully behind this. Like, let's say for example, Audrey and Mr. Lee, they had Zoe. Zoe was raised in New York. She eventually one day moves to Paris, moves in with Audrey and her stepdad Andre, but Audrey is Audrey. Andre's like, you know what, I want a divorce, and Zoe's like, please don't leave me with my abusive mum. So he takes Zoe with him. If Chloe was out of the picture, didn't exist to begin with, I'd be like, yes, I would get behind this 110%. And whilst I am happy that Zoe has Andre, because Andre seems to love her very much, it's just like I can't get fully behind it because of Chloe. So, I'm not going to go on too much about it in the video. It's probably something separate we could talk about, but I'm just like, no. Although I did think it was interesting he bought the cinema. Obviously, as we know, in season 4 he wanted to be a filmmaker. Not the same thing, but like, close enough. I mean, for me, ideally, I want to be a published author and be able to live full-time off that. But if I can't achieve that, ideally, I'd like to work in publishing. Like, one step away from it. That doesn't help you get a book published, but I still want to work in that industry. So whilst my dream is to be a full-time author, I'll take publishing as like a second place. And at the minute I'm working in a bookshop, which is a great entry-level job in order to work in publishing. So that's kind of my thinking at the minute. So I get where he's coming from, even though you're a terrible dad to one of your children. And then Zoe arrives at school and Kim comes running out and is like, Zoe, you're from New York, you gotta meet this awesome guy. And I was just like, of course Kim. Of course Kim has that reaction. And then we have the scene with Sabrina, which I thought was so sweet, everyone getting behind her. And really interestingly, so when we see like the little, I don't know, like collage of everyone's pictures with Sabrina, we see what zoo animal they have. And noticeably, Sublime's was the bee zoo animal. So she has the bee profile. So I am thinking, eventually, when Ladybug finds out that Zoe is the one who's been doing this as Fury, going around and hurting people, sorry that was my cat jumping on the desk, she's probably going to take the bee Miraculous off her. And whilst I would absolutely love to see our Lord and Saviour Lady Bee once more, obviously from what we saw at the end of season 5, Pollen! Marinette doesn't really want to keep more than the Miraculous is that she needs on her, more than what, do you know what I mean? Pollen, stay. So she might use it a couple of times, but I think her ultimate goal will be to find someone to use it and take it. So since Sublime has her zoo app set to the bee, could it be her? I know I have no other evidence to suggest it's going to be Sublime if that's what happens if Marinette takes the bee Miraculous off Zoe, but I can hope. And I hope it's Sublime. That would be so much fun. And then they finally have the first class of the entire season. Thank God they are getting an education after all. I was getting a little bit worried about these children. So far I've only done gardening class. And then honestly, Ray, so during like the baking class or whatever in the kitchen, I would like Ray to show me the video. I want to know what's on the video. Even if it doesn't show anyone else, I want to know. Although Adrian's reaction, very cute, very predictable. He's just like, well yeah, someone else wrote that, it wasn't you. He's very, very sweet. I like their relationship. And overall, I did like Marinette's role in this episode, and overall in the season. I feel like the writing the episodes much better when it's another character concerned who isn't Marinette or Adrian, when she's taking a massive backseat, which I'm really enjoying. She's still the main character, but she's just not the focus of the episode, and I think they're doing it much, much better. So then obviously she reports Ray and his friends to Mr. Damocles. Doesn't go very well, but he did try, to be fair. And although in my reaction video, I don't know if I was going insane, I was like, oh my god, could Ray be related to Adrian? Someone had asked me, do I think Ray's related to Zoe? And I was like, unfortunately not, since their names don't rhyme. He can't be. However, Ray's dad has a very similar face shape to one of Adrian's granddads, Amelie and Emily's dad. And they also have helicopters, which is basically what I'm building this entire theory on. Similar face shape, owns a helicopter. Done. So then we have the Marinette and Zoe scene outside Mr. Damocles' office. And I really, really liked the scene, and I like how there were different parallel scenes. There were like 2 other scenes like companion to this that kind of mirrored each other. So I think the first 2 scenes are done really well. So the first one being this one with Marinette and Zoe, where Marinette's like, you just gotta keep trying, there are bad people but you're a good person, and Zoe ends that conversation feeling really hopeful. But then later the next scene that's a companion to it, in my opinion, is with Ladybug and Vesperia, when Vesperia calls her and Ladybug's just like, look, you just gotta keep transforming and stop them from doing it, and you see Zoe kind of getting a bit more jaded towards that. And then the final scene is after the Akuma fight, although I don't think that one was very strong, but we'll get to that when we get towards the end of the video. And one thing I did like is that, so Zoe goes in with the best of intentions when she gets back home to help her dad, oh not her dad, sorry, her stepdad, whatever she calls him. Whatever he is to her, I don't know. And then she transforms, it's just an accident, so I thought that was interesting. I also really liked as well when she transforms and detransforms, there was like a black light instead of a yellow light. It's a bit weird to say black light, since it's black, it's not really light, but you know what I mean? Like, the light they let out when they transform. I thought that was cool, and how it was like an accident. And again, what I'm saying about the pollen and the emotions affecting your suit, whilst I understand the reasoning, everyone else in the show who has used a Miraculous has had a bad day before on days they have transformed. And this hasn't happened. You know what I mean? So I'm just a bit like, about it. I like the reasoning and it does make sense, but it doesn't fit with everything else that's happened in the show. So yeah, however, that being said, I do really enjoy the build-up of all these like little injustices that Zoe is seeing. So they're on the tram driver and there's a boy being annoying, and then the tram driver doesn't stop for the person in the wheelchair. Then we have XY and Bob Roth. There was someone in my comments who really wanted to see XY. There you go, you have it. Why of all people? And then of course what happens at the cinema. So I really liked how it all built up, and then how Zoe kind of just went out and tackled it. So putting Bob in the Eiffel Tower, great. Then Ray and the boys from the boat to the roller coaster, and then putting the men back in the cinema, and then taking the tram driver from Max. And also, oh my god, poor Max. He just wanted to get off the tram, wanted to go home, let him go home. So I really enjoyed how it transitioned very naturally from what Zoe was doing to then Max calling Ladybug, and then the Akuma fight starting. I really, really enjoyed that. And also I have to mention, because there's someone obsessed with him in my comment section, Otis was in this episode, Ali's dad. There is someone in my comment section who is absolutely in love with Otis. I'm not really sure why, but Animan is their favourite episode, so I hope you enjoyed the Otis content in this episode. I get the weirdest comments, including the people in my theory video yesterday who were denying that Zoe was Fury, and I was just like, you saw in the trailer her transform. They were like, yeah, no, she didn't. Why is this fandom, why is a portion of this fandom just stuck in denial about everything? When you like show concrete evidence, like, look, this person does this, they're just like, no. Absolutely not. My eyes did not see it. I don't get it. Are they trolling? Are they just pretending? Or do they genuinely believe that? I don't know! I don't know. Anyway, they get Ray off the roller coaster. His hair. Fabulous. And then we get to the Akuma portion of the episode. So one thing I really liked was, again, like I said, how it all kind of flowed very naturally. So Zoe as Fury is putting these people in random places. And then everyone is noticing they're there, so everyone goes to rescue them. And in the middle of rescuing them, the villain gets akumatized for this episode. Cool. I liked how it all flowed. And I did really enjoy how powerful this Akuma victim was for being a child. Thought that was cool as well. However, the reason for Sam, as we find out his name, gets akumatized is because Zoe, Fury, humiliated him. He was cutting up his sister's diapers, he's been annoying babies on the train and making them cry, so Zoe dresses him up as a baby and puts him in public and humiliates him. I understand the reasoning. But then for Lila to, I know we didn't actually see the akumatization sequence in this one, so I don't know what their conversation was like, but I do find it a bit odd that Lila basically goes along with the infantilizing roots of it and kind of making him a baby kind of in his Akuma form, because he was wearing a diaper in his Akuma form, or a nappy if you're from the UK, and infantilizing him further. Like, wouldn't he also be mad at Chrissy Pop for that? You know what I mean? I did think that was a little bit of an odd choice, because it just seemed too childlike when he obviously hates babies. I also liked he was the older brother of the girl from Illustrated, that was cool. So I liked the reason he had, but I just thought the Akuma being that just didn't fully make sense considering what he was about, you know. Although I did find it interesting how he does the baby cry or whatever, and he gets Rena, Cat Noir, and was it Miss Hound? I can't remember, but they all kind of go, I think it was Miss Hound, they all go flying and Chrissy Pop is like, hey, be careful, don't damage the Miraculous. So I thought that was interesting, that was even a possibility by doing that. So that was cool. Throughout the whole fight as well, Pegasus was absolutely amazing. He's been absolutely overused this season. I hope we get Max's episode soon because he absolutely deserves it. He's been working overtime this season, poor boy. He literally has the best power, honestly. And speaking of powers, I actually, for once in my life, really like the Lucky Charm in the episode. Usually I'm just like, whatever, Lucky Charm, I don't care. That's why I like the movie so much, because there's no Lucky Charm in the movie, so I'm like, great, fine, get rid of it, axe it. But I actually really liked it in this episode, because it's actually kind of useful for once. So I enjoyed how that was done, which is Miraculous Ladybug to get the phone back because they broke it, and then you get the Russian dolls to say like, oh yeah, he's inside. Kind of like a Glaciator moment. So I still liked that, and one thing I liked at the end of the Akuma fight is that Sam was still angry, so they gave him a talking to. Cat Noir's talking to was absolutely great, I loved that, but the conversation with Ladybug and Vesperia I wasn't fully satisfied with. So like I said before, there's like 3 companion conversations. So the first one between Marinette and Zoe, the second one between Ladybug and Vesperia on the roof, and this is like the third one to finish it. And I think they started well, where Zoe starts shouting at Sam like, oh, I've seen videos of you on the Zoo app making fun of babies and making them cry and being rude to mothers. Great, starts well, but Ladybug's like, hey, stop, calm down, chill out, whatever. Like, I agree he's done something wrong, but that's not the way to go, and what this Fury person did also wasn't the way to go. However, I just felt Zoe gave in too easily, especially when we know she disagrees. So at the end of the episode, in the ending scene, which honestly is probably the least interesting end scene we've got so far, obviously we know like she's still intending to go out, she's watching out of her window, and she sees Ray and Nelson on the bike, whatever, harassing the bin collectors, the refuse collectors, and once Ray and Compre steps in, she's like, okay, no, we don't need to go out tonight and, you know, teach more people a lesson. But she had every intention of ignoring Ladybug, and again, like I said, I'm pretty sure since this episode is the first time she transforms into Fury, the scene at the end of Sleeping Siren still happens. So Zoe, we know, from what we've already seen, completely ignores everything Ladybug said to her. So considering we know that, I just felt the conversation didn't reflect that. And I feel like she should have had honestly, a bit more of an argument with Ladybug. So I wasn't fully satisfied with it, although I did enjoy the fact they didn't do the pounder in the scene, because it kind of hints at the team are fracturing a little bit, which I like. If we're gonna go along with, I think did I make a theory video about like the Miraculous Civil War, like when Cat Noir finds out what Ladybug's done about his dad and stuff, he's not gonna be happy and they kind of break apart. Could this be more to it? Definitely, I think so, with Fury possibly being on Cat Noir's side. I definitely think so, though it was really interesting. So yeah, I wasn't entirely satisfied with this conversation at the end, considering what we all know about Zoe and what she's going to do as Fury. However, back to the Civil War stuff, again, I think the end card was really reflective of this, because we have all the heroes on one side and Vesperio's in theirs, and all the heroes who fought in this episode, and then Fury on the other side. So it's very interesting. I definitely think it possibly could go that way, but I also definitely could be wrong because I don't have much evidence for it. So I definitely feel like it's possibly hinting at Zoe eventually breaking away from the team. And like I said before, I did think the ending scene after the end card was a bit meh, basically, in comparison to the other end scenes we've got lately. But I guess in one way I don't mind so much. They can't all be, you know, groundbreaking. We gotta have a break sometimes, but I really like that Andre has hired Anansi, Alia's older sister, to take over basically cinema security, so that was fun. So yeah, overall 7.5 out of 10. Overall, I thought it was great. I thought the flow and the pace were good, and I liked a lot of the plot points, but there were just some things I felt either confused by or dissatisfied by. So I was a little bit confused about Zoe's suit. I'm not confused in the sense that it didn't make sense. 100% understand what Pollen was saying, but also it doesn't make sense because the other holders have had bad days before and this hasn't happened. And also one thing I'm a bit confused about is Zoe's like super speed she seems to have acquired. So the only possible way I can think of explaining it is that basically Zoe is doing a Ladybug Claw Noir, where she's basically forcing her body, forcing herself mentally to push the limits of the Miraculous's powers. So she can do that, but ultimately in the end it will harm her, like we saw in the Reverse special with Ladybug and Claw Noir. I don't know if I'm correct though. That's the only explanation I have, since that's not the Miraculous's power. So I don't know, could it be an upgrade? I guess perhaps. But I don't know. I'm not sure. So it just felt really incongruous basically with everything we know and have seen so far. And the Akuma villain, whilst I liked him and whilst I thought it was really powerful and they were a bit of a challenge to defeat, which I really like, it wasn't easy, it did feel a bit weird that Chrysalis akumatized him into a baby. Didn't make full sense. And the final conversation with Vesperia and Ladybug after the Akuma fight, I didn't personally find fully satisfying, but that's just my opinion. Of course, I'd love to know what the rest of you thought of this episode. If you're going to write me a long comments, please do, just please break it into paragraphs so I can see it a bit better. It's a bit easier for me to reply because of my poor eyesight, and apologies. I know I still have comments left to reply to under the Noe analysis and the Tokyo special one. It's just because I went away on holiday. That's why, so I've needed a little bit more time, but I will get to them, I always do. So let us know what you think of this episode, besties, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!